Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Nathan Nerdarch.
Nerdarchist Dave.
And so we have an email from Matthew Jones, is it?
It is.
Okay, so he wanted to discuss the idea of having sort of legacy characters or generational characters that span over, say, 2 centuries of gameplay. But I'm supposed to be interrupted by...
Oh, sure, I'll interrupt you. Down in the description below, we have a link to the newsletter. If you want to get RPG, GM tips, other bonus exclusive materials, or a game with Nerdarchy, sign up for that.
Yep, and so back to our release programming or Nerdarchy.
Whatever it is we do here.
Whatever we do. So the idea of having a game that spans, like centuries of world history in a way, which is kind of cool because, as GMs, though you don't want to over-prepare or over-write, sometimes you just have those ideas that you just end up putting down because you have them, and it gets you a chance to explore that history, and it becomes less masturbatory when you actually have other people know about it and involved in it.
So there's a couple ways of looking at it. This too, and comic books do this over and over and over again. It's the concept of the legacy character. You look at the Bat family; it's huge. So that's a good place to look for inspiration, because whether you're talking Marvel or you're talking DC, so many of those characters have legacy characters that have come after them.
Well, except for
comics.
This gets into my problem with comic books, but the fact that all their continuity is kind of bullshit because people literally pick and choose a la carte what's relevant and what's not. No, this never happened because these characters have been around for 60 years and so many different creative teams have had access to them.
Yeah.
Whereas I would actually much rather have someone look at Hellboy and BPRD because it's all Mike Mignola's vision throughout. So everything that happened has happened, unless there's some sort of minor alternative universe.
Yeah, but the concept's still kind of the same.
The concept's the same, but the history is not. The history doesn't matter. And in this instance, the history is huge because he wants the history to be the history.
Yeah, so a good example of the history being the history is Lord of the Rings. That's legacy because you have Bilbo going out in The Hobbit, and then you have a Frodo dealing with all the stuff that happened pretty much in The Hobbit.
Yeah, that is actually a very good example.
That would probably be one of the best ones.
Actually, though, with the superheroes, you look at the problem that you just discussed is a problem that Green Ronin talked about when they actually got the license to use DC. So what they actually decided they had to do was come up with the iconic version of each of those characters that they used, and they used a lot of them. Yeah. So. Which, I mean, it's actually a little bit off topic, but it speaks to that whole problem you're talking about with the superheroes and the comics.
Well, because really what I think the heart of this question is about established history, a canon history, and there's very little... The essence of those characters exist, but not a whole lot is really canon. There's the Bruce Wayne's parents die. That's one of the go-tos.
Or Star Wars is another one you could look at.
Star Wars is great. Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, I mean...
then there was Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. But for...
So here's the thing. With this kind of a game, how do you do it and do it well? Well, first of all, okay, so you want it to be with the same players that have played in your campaign setting before.
So, I mean, ideally, basically, this is going to be a campaign that, you have to have players that are, committed to wanting to be in your game for, 5 years or something like that. I mean, to, get that really feel of history and, moving down throughout the...
I disagree in the sense that you have a group, you have a campaign, it runs its course, whatever that is. You stop. You start a new campaign. Same setting. Advance the timeline. And
any of those characters that are played in the next iteration can be linked to the previous.
They can be linked to them, or you just can highlight and showcase things that happened in the previous campaigns and how they impacted the world on a wider viewer array. And maybe perhaps it was even it affect things in a bigger picture than even the characters knew at the time. Yeah. So you could do there could be ripple effects and stuff like that. But if you constantly throw little Easter eggs like that in, that's how you're going to effectively create that generational game.
You could also have too some of the items that was in that campaign, maybe each of the characters gets to have that, but they have to explain how that happened. And then you weave that back into the history of your story and your world.
If the fighter's sword is now like a legendary item.
That's in the hands of someone.
In the sense of it's got stories about it.
Yeah. And like, so I mean, maybe you're not even this next game, like maybe you only run 10 sessions of each like timeline thing. But like, so maybe the first one you run 1 through 5 or whatever, and the next one you start up at level 10, and like they're going to start with an item.
You know, you could do something fun, like maybe one of the characters from that original game.
This is the grandchild of one of the other,
Or I was thinking the villain.
Yeah.
You know, is now actually one of those like they
reformed sort of redemption characters.
Oh no, I was
No,
going
like,
completely the other way.
Oh,
It was
like
actually
you're
one of
totally
the
gonna have
player's
to kill him.
characters. Yeah. He's now Death Knight or Vampire or whatever.
Or he was an elf and he's just still alive, and he had a change in his worldview.
Yeah.
A lot of things have happened in 200 years. Yeah, I was thinking that a way that you could continue the characters but change the timeline is you could have like the end battle they lose in a sense because some kind of weird crazy time thing happens. Whatever ritual somebody wanted to do or whatever artifact you tried to destroy and it didn't work out so well, then you either get like flash frozen in a sense and wake up later or get teleported to a different time
but
and space.
he's saying generational game. To me that says this is the next generation. This is different.
Like
and
kids,
possibly,
descendants, students of the student of the guy who was the awesome monk.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I really brought up superheroes because they do that all the time. They always have sidekicks.
Yeah.
They always have apprentices, and or of course kids always have superpowers. And stuff like that.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I definitely like the idea of, like, bringing back some people in surprising ways, and also, too, like, when your first campaign arc, we talk about this all the time, where, like, the idea of the sort of plot hooks that your players decide not to pursue, and they, like, go farm or run an inn for, like, 12 sessions or whatever. Well, like, the repercussions of whatever happened, and so like the next generation game could be like,
woke up.
Yeah, like the next generation game is like dealing with the fallout of all of that because it really comes to fruition by that span. It's like it blossoms to whatever horribleness fruit it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean any of those plot hooks that they didn't take, like the rumors of a dragon, or whatever. Well, maybe now that region like is inhabitable,
or it's ruled by a dragon. Like a dragon actually reigns as the monarch in that land. And like it calls for tithes.
Could have killed him when it was Wormling, but
now he's like an uber dragon because he's got like all this lore, all these cool items.
And 200 years is just a good amount of time for getting to be, just old enough that they're not sissies anymore.
Yeah. So so the key points with this generational concept is items, events,
lore.
Descendants. Like I think they're like your pillars of building it and really tying
also
it in.
too, like keep really good notes, especially of things of ways that like what if one of the players chose to like carve something into like a cave or whatever, carve like his initials or whatever, have that location come back later on, like your second or third, and like you describe these letters written there by the adventurers like 2 generations ago that have done that. Like these little notes.
The player forgets about it and they're like trying to solve this riddle.
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, like it could have been like one of those like the tree with the heart and like the 2 sets of initials. Like it could be exactly that. Like somebody
the dwarf got drunk and carved something,
or they prestidigitation to be there or whatever. Wizard marked it. So these little cool callbacks sort of things.
The Easter eggs. Yeah, from the previous campaigns. I think those are like your core concepts that we want to stay true to. You get those going on. That's the stuff that your players are going to be like, the aha moments when that stuff pops up at you.
Yeah. And like maybe like the people that throw away like villainous henchmen that like maybe they were like long lived or whatever, like they come back and be like a full out villain in their own right if they got away. Like the villain. So if you have villains with henchmen that get away, like go give them some description, and then like later on, like I saw you at the battle and such, or like you're a descendant of such
so
and such.
So
Yeah. So like maybe it was like a lesser demon who becomes a greater demon.
Oh, that would be fantastic if they kill a demon and then it's back.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, you're the grandson of."
Yeah, I've been hunting down family members. You're next on the list.
Yeah, or they constantly have to deal with, such and such was such a great hero, and
you're just okay.
Something along those lines. But they're constantly getting hammered by, being the descendant of this like great person, And they kind of always, oh, you know, such and such was so awesome. Oh, he's your grandfather. I thought you'd be taller. You know, it's something, something along those lines. Whatever you come up.
You're a little pudgy around the middle.
Yeah, little hooks that just kind of like make it interesting, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we covered that all pretty well.
In the comments below, you guys can let us know what you think. Like, share, and subscribe.
You can patronize us in a good way over Patreon.
Just check out the articles over at nerdarcade.com.
So until next time, stay nerdy.